Every character, location, or experience you've read about in my crime fiction novels holds a piece of reality. I'm Helen Taylor. Welcome to the story behind my stories, the video podcast where crime fiction meets my authentic experience. Here, we delve into the real-life inspirations and intimate stories that shaped my novels. Discover how my everyday encounters, adventures, and travels translate into tales as gripping as they are genuine. The story behind my stories goes behind the words on the page to reveal the backstory that inspires my writing. Hit follow or subscribe and ensure you're part of this journey. Hi everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the story behind my stories, the story behind Don't Die For Me Argentina. Now, I just want to remind you quickly before we get into the episode that it is out in a week and 3 days. So if you're enjoying what you're hearing here, do go over and pre-order it. And any likes and follows, please do that. Helps an indie author tremendously, you wouldn't believe. So this week I want to talk about preparing for the trip. It's a whole other book due out the end of next year, I think. But I had been in India and had gone out into the sea, and somebody else was ahead of me, and they had been taken out by a massive wave that smashed into the side of my knee. Was in agony. Turned out we don't think that I'd snapped my ACL. I just ripped it. And then I got back from that adventure and decided I needed to do another one. My daughter had turned 18 and I'd been in this mode of trying to get a bit more life back for me. And so I was also getting older. I was 54, 55, and I had always had this dream, as I told you last week, of being a cowgirl. And I think the year earlier I had found this place in Argentina, but because having looked so much throughout America, and I'd been to America years and years and years ago and had wanted to ride into the Grand Canyon, but you can't, it's too steep for horses. You can only do it on mules, which actually, thinking about that now, completely doesn't make sense with what we did in Argentina, but that's beside the point. So I hadn't looked elsewhere, and I don't know what made me look, but I found this experience in Patagonia, and I had 2 things left on my bucket list, 2 places left on my bucket list I'd wanted to visit in my life. One was India, which I'd just done at the end of 2023, and the other was South America. And the cruise, we touched on the top of South America, Panama, Colombia, etc. But I wanted to do South America, Chile, Argentina. And so this was perfect. Killed 2 birds with 1 stone, if you like. And so I saw the orthopedics at my hospital. I saw my doctor at the end of the December and said that every time I sort of stepped up on anything, it would really pull and be really painful again. So she referred me to ortho. And I saw ortho and he said, no, I don't think you've snapped it. It's sore. So I said, I want to go to Argentina and do this horse ride. Can I do it? And he said, I'm not going to commit to anything till we've done an MRI. Because whilst I don't think you've done any damage and you can go, I'm not going to promise that until you've had an MRI, and I know for sure. So I was, okay. But then I did something probably very silly and decided, well, if he didn't think I'd broken anything, all to the good. Let's book and do this trip to Argentina. So I booked it. I got added to a WhatsApp group, which found on there one other person coming from the UK. Had a chat on the phone, exchanged a few messages with this guy, and we became fast friends. And it was fantastic to have somebody to talk to about this dream coming true, because it was the same for him as I expected it was for everybody else on the trip. Uh, I'm going to read you a little excerpt now from chapter 2. I don't know what chapter actually. Chapter 2, maybe, of Don't Die For Me, Argentina. And this is Penny preparing. Besides, in all the information she'd been given, it was very clear they travelled by minibus, from Goodwin to the farmhouse, over 7 hours, and from about 5 hours in, they lost all signal. They were wholly off grid. That was what she was looking forward to. Even if she wanted to talk to someone, which she rarely did, or fire something off on her keyboard into the ether, as Goodwin would call it, and was far more her style, she couldn't. She tapped Goodwin on the arm in that there way, the one that said you wouldn't understand, which he wouldn't. A notification pinged on her phone. We'd better get going. She looked down at her phone again, but the screen went to sleep, dropped it in her pocket, and picked up her bag. The Uber is 2 minutes away. Goodwin smiled and nodded, following her out of the door. He knew she thought of him as a complete technophobe, but he was learning, and he was aware these devices wouldn't actually hold her data and information. That would all be in the cloud, whatever the hell that was. The devices were just a portal into the cloud, into a world he freely admitted he didn't understand, a world where people committed crimes, yes, even murder, having never been physically in the same place. Luckily for him, it seemed unlikely that the usual method for committing murder would remain, more often than not, in the realms of reality and not virtuality. They climbed into their Uber as it pulled up and headed to the airport. The conversation was light-hearted, full of love, sightseeing and romantic times for Goodwin, horses sleeping under the stars and cowgirl adventures for Penny. So that was... We didn't stay in a hotel in Argentina. We got straight on an internal flight down to Goodwin, the same as where Penny was going. But going back to the leg story, the author had put me on the list for the MRI, and as I said, I went ahead and booked this trip to Argentina. And then I thought, I haven't ridden a horse for a very long time. It must be 20 plus years. And you can ride a horse for half an hour and feel it in your thighs and your bum and your legs everywhere. But to sit on a horse for all day and do it. So I signed up at a local riding school to do a few lessons and get back on the horse, so to speak. And I went 3 or 4 times, and on the fourth time, on the way there, I'd twisted my knee as I'd got out of the car, and it was a little bit painful. But I was wearing just like the elastic sort of bandages to try and give it a bit of support, which they'd given me in India. And So I went ahead and I bought off of Amazon a soft knee brace. And then I went for the ride and it was fine. And I was like, "Yeah, great. That's all right. Even if it doesn't quite heal by the time I go, I'm good." And so I'd been going for an hour's hack once a week. I didn't think that was enough. That wasn't going to be enough to get those my seat and my thighs ready. So I was racking my brains at how I could get my body in that mode and able to do that. Because I spend so much of my day sat down at a computer that, yeah, it wasn't right in the right position for that. And then suddenly it clicked. I thought, you know what? I'm going to get myself a saddle seat. And then for 8 hours a day when I'm sat at my computer working, I can use that. So I'm just going to read you another little extract which talks about that IT based thing, which is another thing that me and Penny have in common, surprisingly. Despite her tech background and the amount of time she spent sat on a device, whether it be a PC, laptop, tablet, or phone, which was the world she lived in, she wasn't a reluctant tech, but very much embraced the world of technology. She was a cybersecurity expert and had the skills and interests of a hacker, but she was what was known as a white hat hacker, penetrating systems as one of the good guys for defensive reasons rather than for criminal or nefarious ones. That's me too. I did my ethical hacking course a few years ago, and I sat all day, every day at a computer. So I went on Amazon and I bought a saddle seat, which is basically the bit of the saddle that you sit on a pole with wheels at the bottom that you can whiz round. And as is my usual thing, I thought, yeah, I'll be fine with this. After about an hour and a half, I was hurting. So I had to break myself in slowly. But within 2 weeks, I was doing the full 8 hours sat on my saddle seat. Which prior to that, I had one of the kneeling seats, but I obviously couldn't do that with my knee. Anyway, the fourth time that I'd gone riding, I'd got off, dismounted, and as I dismounted, I must have landed funny. And I have never felt pain like it. Never felt pain like it. To the extent that I thought I was going to throw up, thought I was going to pass out. And I have a very high pain threshold. But yeah, that really rocked me. And I knew I'd done something bad. And my leg just, I had to take really slow steps to get back to the car once that initial pain bit had eased. And I drove home, and then I was taking Rupert out for a walk. I had a date actually, I had a date that afternoon. So I showered, put my leg brace on, went out for the date. It all seemed to be okay. Got home, took the leg brace off, and it was proper swollen. So I iced it all up, and then the next day I went to walk Rupert, and where I walk in Brooklands Park, you go up sort of a flight of railway sleeper steps, a mound at the top, and down on the other side. And I got to the top and my knee gave way, and I couldn't get down. I couldn't move it. It just, oh. So I eventually, when the pain eased again and I had to go down one at a time. And by the time I got home, I was not in a good way. So my friend came and picked me up and took me to the hospital. Now, it was a Saturday afternoon. Thought I was going to be there for hours, so I took books to read and notes to make, and off I went. Well, literally, they saw me straight away. And he said that as I was having an MRI the following Sunday, not the next day, but a week later, I was already booked in for that they wouldn't bother doing anything, gave me some crutches so that I could get round, and moved forward my consultant appointment to being the Monday after my MRI. And I had until the end of that week to decide whether I was going to go or not to Argentina. That was my last point of cancellation. So then I went for my MRI, and the technician came in after they'd done it and said, "How did you do that?" And I was like, "Oh no, do what?" And she said, "I can't tell you." So she wouldn't tell me, wouldn't give me a hint, wouldn't do anything. Anyway, I saw the consultant the next day, and he said, "Well, the radiologist hasn't looked at it yet. I won't know." And I said, "Well, from what the technician told me, you'll see." And he said, "Okay." So he pulled up the MRI and he went, "Right, let me get you on the surgery list right now." And told me that I'd completely snapped my ACL. He showed me on the scan that there should be a line here and there isn't. And he also said I had a very deep meniscus tear. And so he's telling me all of this, telling me I need surgery. He's putting me on for surgery and he's talking to me. And all I'm thinking is, can I go to Argentina? Can I go to Argentina? And so then I say to him, he says, "Oh, you put active and whatever." And I said, "Oh, yeah." I told him that I was doing it when I was doing this adventure in India. And I told him that I'd been riding horses and whatever. And I walked the dog every day. And so he was, you have to tell them they must fix the meniscus. They mustn't remove it because you're too young, too fit and too active to not have a meniscus. So I was like, okay. Asked him if I could still have massages because I have regular sports massages. And he said, if you've got the money for that, get physio. Get physio to prep you for your surgery. And recommended the one in West Byfleet that I'd gone to previously. So I was like, okay, fair enough. So then I said to him, I've booked this adventure in Argentina. Can I do that? And I think inside I was pretty sure he was going to play it safe like the previous ortho and tell me no. And he said, "You have some great holidays, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Go, go." He said, "I'm going to give you a special brace. Wear that. Wear it all the time, apart from when you're sleeping." And he said, "That will keep it stable so that you don't do loads of other damage around it." And I was like over the moon, absolutely over the moon. And so he gave me that and he told me what to do, and he told me to tell the physio that's what I was doing, and the physio would give me stuff to strengthen me to be able to go to Argentina, and then also to be able to recover well from in the surgery and back to life as quick as possible. So there I was. I was living out my dreams because my daughter had turned 18 and I wanted something back for me. I was living out my dreams because I felt I was getting old, and if I didn't do it now, especially, sleeping under the stars on the ground, riding for hours and hours at a day, I better do it now before I couldn't anymore. And I had snapped my ACL. So that was the state that I went off to Argentina in. And I had a tremendous amount of support. James, who was the other guy coming for the UK, he was, we'll look after you, don't worry, you're good. And he'd booked the same flight as me so that we could fly out together. And when we met at the airport, we just clicked. We had a fantastic time. The day before I got the results of the MRI and saw the ortho, I had messaged on Hinge a guy who looked like somebody I wanted to get to know. I'd been out on a few dates, but none of them had gone anywhere. And started messaging him. And we met the week before I went to Argentina. So we messaged for about a month. Met the week before I went to Argentina. I'm still with him now. But he was lovely and supportive, and he took me to the airport. And yeah, so having spent all that time on my saddle seat while I was working my IT, also then being able to just leave all that tech was one of the things that I was looking forward to as much as Penny. She's more tech than me, but as I said last week, there is a lot of that side. The love of horses and the IT side of Penny is me. So like Penny, I was looking forward to being off-grid as much as she was. It wasn't so dangerous for me though. I'll leave it there for this week. And to please like, listen, share, and pre-order Don't Die For Me Argentina. It's there on Amazon. Get it now. Be the first to read it. Take care and I'll see you next week. Bye.